Today's mission is ring the bell. When every member of your team has rung the bell, cross this line. Question, trainee.
What do we win, sir?
You win dinner, 117. Last team to finish goes without dinner.
Oh, no!
Make ready. Go!
I knew John was a natural leader, even if he didn't.
John, little help? First!
A leader must inspire passion, and 117 certainly did that.
Hey, thanks for nothing. Ugh.
Good work, trainees. Everybody eats. Except 117 and his team.
But I was first.
You were first, but your team came in last. And you don't win unless your team wins.
Stop the cap.
All right. Let me just say this. And I hope my recorder's not too far away. A lot of us really just don't want to do this shit. And that's just the facts of it. You know, when it comes to, you know, community responsibility. I mean, I did a video, put it on my other page, you know, about the whole, you know, I'm not my ancestors, or we're not our ancestors, and the real, you know, conversation and why that's even being said behind that. I'm not going to get into all that because I already covered that in that video. But a brother came over and he wrote a comment, and he's basically accusing me of being Umar Johnson, because in the video I covered about, you know, how young people don't have any respect for black elders because, you know, they don't get anything from them. They don't eat off of them. They don't, you know, get anything from them. No economic opportunities, nothing, you know. And it's funny how people love to throw around the term community, but then when it comes to, you know, what a community is supposed to do for its people, it's like everybody draws a blank, you know. And this was Thug Tishan's point years ago about, you know, people bragging about being the black middle class. And he was like, you know, what is the black middle class supposed to do? It's like, you all don't do any of it. You know, you don't do, you know, you're not a segue from the poor to the upper class. You know, you guys don't own any businesses. You're not hiring anybody. Nobody's eating off of you. Yes, street culture exists because there's too many black people living in poverty. I mean, once the factories and economic opportunities dried up, you know, in the white community, you know, black people, you know, shifted to this, you know, alternative culture, you know, where some of that stuff didn't matter. And unfortunately, you know, the shit, you know, spun out of control, you know, and it's not like white supremacy didn't, you know, usher it in that direction with its full support of, you know, hip hop through music and, you know, the white and Jewish men that were making money off of that. You know, but, you know, anytime you have a situation, I mean, you know, the working man really died in the 80s, because anytime you have, you know, rappers and entertainers and drug dealers and all these guys, not only do they get the spotlight, but they got the theme music, you know, and they have money. You know, when it comes to, you know, all this, you know, black men can go around the world and sleep with all these other races of women and all that other shit. A lot of that is riding off of the coattails of street culture, because it's not like blackness is valued around the world. It's not. You know, the reality is that black men are associated with, you know, money and status via, you know, hip hop culture. When they see 50 Cent up there, and they see 2 Chainz, and they see, you know, NBA Youngboy, and they see Lil Baby, and they're, you know, in the mall and they're buying the whole store up. You know what I mean? You know, that's what, you know, that's the face of black men. Right. And so, you know, with the jobs drying up, and black folks not being able to get jobs from these major corporations that white people owned, operated, and control. And then those men not having anything to offer, like their buying power decreased, their ability to purchase homes and all that decreased, and you had the feminism and women were doing their thing. It's like, just the way that it looks, it's like, yeah, they want to go and they get with those guys. They don't think it all the way out. Don't think that they do. They don't think the shit out. They got stupid ass immature ideas in their head that they're gonna go off and get with Rick Ross and live, and there's like a retirement plan with that sort of type of shit, right? This is how they think. Ignoring the fact that mostly these guys aren't rappers, not entertainers, but so you got the other guys that are in the streets that mimic and imitate that, because they're also trying to ride off of the coattails, even though they don't have any of that real money. They don't got the baby level money. They don't got Lil Baby level money. They don't got Lil Wayne level money, right? But they go out there and they mimic the persona of these guys. But one of the brothers, he came at me in the comment section, claiming that I was trying to, shame black men into taking on the responsibilities of irresponsible people, and that, my rhetoric of, what the older generation didn't do, it's along the lines of individualism, personal responsibility, and all that stuff, and it's nobody else's fault but the individual person, which it just that's just one of these conservative ways of looking at things, but that's not the way that it is. What is the point of even talking about community? Second off, like, why are you even on my page? This is where dudes get really fucked up, because they come to me because I'm the only person really talking about like these issues, right? Or you get guys that come over because they what I say about black women resonates with them and they agree with that part, but then when I get into some of the other areas, they don't agree and their feathers get ruffled, right? But these guys, what was I going to say about it? These guys, there's a number of black men, they kind of take this like Candace Owens type of position, right? And we know Candace Owens is not a foundational black American, but they take this sort of position, where they want to remove themselves from the community, right? It's like how white people don't want the legacy of slavery, right? Even though they're the beneficiaries of slavery and Jim Crow. They don't want the reputation. Well, I didn't own any slaves. Well, I didn't do any of that, right? And as black men, that's what we do. Well, I didn't do any of this. All the kids out of wedlock, all that stuff, especially when distinctions are being made between, educated lames and, street dudes and all that. The attitude is, well, I didn't do any of this, and they're right to say that. But the problem with brothers like the guy that wrote the comment is, number one, you're not going to get a pass because you're a black man. Whatever problems exist in the community, those problems are our responsibilities. And if you walk away from them, you're going to get labeled, a coward. That's just the way that the world operates, just the way that the world is. You're not going to be able to escape other races running around, telling black people, oh, your community is fucked up. You can go out here, you can marry a white woman, you can marry an Asian woman, you can leave the community altogether. Okay? You're going to look like a damn fool sitting over there acting like, I'm one of the good ones. I'm not like them. I'm an individual. Like, you're going to look like a dumbass. Okay? Especially when all their, shit is, I'll say relatively more intact than our shit. You're going to look like a dumbass, sitting there saying that. And you're going to look like a coward because even when you're over the fence, it's like, number one, you couldn't make it work with your own women. Number two, you're over here, so let me remind you of that. You're a guest, so don't get beside yourself. You know what I mean? Because we could tell your black ass to go back to whence you came from. And then just any level of disrespect, you're going to have to deal with that, because at the end of the day, they know that you don't have any backup, because again, your community is fucked up and disorganized. right? This is one of the reasons why everybody's jumping up and down and and cheering about the Montgomery Alabama River brawl, right? That's why they're cheering about that, right? Because it was a show of solidarity, that was on public display and filmed and and all that. And like I said, if it was the 1920s, white people would have went and just went on a purge. I was watching some TikTok video of a white woman who admitted that the white people in the town are running around whispering in grocery store lines talking about, what are we gonna do? When are we gonna stick together? And we can't just let that go down like that. And she just sitting there rolling her eyes. And she's like, I ain't taking an ass whooping for y'all. Yo, fuck that. You know? But she just being honest about it. So there are white folks that, they feel some type of way about that, that very, public loss. When people get into these race games or race categorizations. It is what it is. I'm just saying you're not going to be able to escape it. And don't get it, at the end of the day, like I feel your pain. I feel the same way. But you're not going to get a pass on it. You're not going to get, even though you didn't do it, you're not going to get a pass on it. Just like the way it comes to white folks and white supremacy. You know what I mean? Black people ain't giving white folks no passes. It's not like when a white person jumps up and says, well, I didn't own any slaves. We go, okay, you're right, pass. We don't give them a pass on that shit. We look at them like, nah, if you really want my respect, then you need to do everything in your power as a white person in 2023 to dismantle, the system of white supremacy. Especially when people want to run around and they want to claim like, oh, it's a meritocracy and shit like that. And then not only that, you got to reverse all the damage that was done to us, which makes it very difficult, for it to be a meritocracy. Like the people try to act like, you got white kids going to private schools and they got all the resources in the world, for them to go to college. And then you got black kids, in the inner city and in the hood, that don't have those resources. And those two people do not have to put in the same amount of effort to get to the same place. One is going to have to work 10 times harder to get to the same place because they don't have the support system. And they don't have the support system when you look at the historical context of all the shit that happened to black people. When you look at redlining, blockbusting, Jim Crow, eminent domain, convict leasing, debt peonage, COINTELPRO, 1994 crime bill, right? Freaking Iran-Contras dumping drugs in the black community, crack cocaine disparities, right? 1955 Highway Commission Act, the purging of black communities, and the bulldozing of black communities, highways being run through black communities. All of that contributes to the socioeconomic disparities, educational disparities, job opportunity disparities, right? All the way down to, marriage rates and kids out of wedlock rates and all that contributes to that. Because your foundation is fucked up. Your ability to provide for a family, the networks, the connectedness of your community, it's all broken. Especially when you want to talk about that whole, urban renewal and running the highways through communities. Because, you had, 3, 4, 5, generations or more people living in the same neighborhood. They didn't have to go and, pay $800 for a daycare. Miss Jackson will watch the kids all day for you because she, her, your mom, your grandmother went to school with her or whatever. You could leave the kids with her and it was no problem. But now you got black people living in areas and neighborhoods, and a lot of times they don't even know each other nor trust each other because it's just a, new construction and people, move there or move in and out rapidly, or it's old construction and people just move in and out. One of the two. It's not a neighborhood that, has, been here since, 1904 or something like that. It doesn't have that. You know what I mean? So, you got to think if you had a black community that was built in the 1900s, by 1970, that community was 70 years old. It was 70 years old. And again, in the 1950s, they were running highways through these communities, right? And that was 50 years old or 55 years old. So I'm just saying, at the end of the day, when it comes to mentoring the boys, all this stuff, you got to sort that out in your own mind. I don't think anybody should be shamed into doing it. Just know that you're not going to get a pass. You're not going to get oh, you're right, brother. You don't have anything to do with it. Not as a man. It's just the way that it is. You're not going to get a fucking pass on that shit. So you got to sort out whether you want to contribute or not in your own mind. And you can say it's not your responsibility, and you can walk away. You're free to do that. But people are going to talk shit about you. And I know how annoying that is. I know how frustrating that is. Because there's nothing worse than being charged or blamed for something that you truly did not have anything to fucking do with. This is where you get all these, coon and black people, and the black people that go on Fox News, and these pet Negroes that try to get a pat on the head from the system of white supremacy. I'm not like those other Negroes, right? They go up there and they coon and they tap dance and they throw other black people underneath the bus, thinking that they're gonna get a freaking cookie, from white supremacy. They're gonna get a Scooby snack. You know what I'm saying? Clarence Thomas was on that bullshit. If you go and you watch that unflattering documentary about him on, I think it was PBS or Frontline, one of them two. But this reminds me of, I got a friend that, he's not black. He, he divorced his wife. And, I know that, he's on business a lot, business trips. He's never really home. His wife has custody of his child, and her and I converse, and she was telling me about how their child basically was saying that they wanted to know why daddy doesn't pick him up from school like all the other kids, and I tried to tell him, I'm like, you're fucking up. You're fucking up, because if your child is making comparisons like that and you're not there, those memories are going to be built in now. And I told him, I was like, first off, I was like, you not being there in the former years, that really doesn't matter like that, because children don't even form memories until about 3 years old. Most people can't remember further back than 3 years old. So, because I think the issue is like the hippocampus is not properly formed. But in any event, I'm telling him now, I'm like, nah, like she remembers that shit. and I'm telling him, I'm like, man, I don't want to hear no complaints later on, when she's basically not listening to you, or you're having problems with his daughter, because I said child at first, but fuck it, he has a daughter, which makes it worse, because girls and fathers and girls would really go out there and do something that their father doesn't like, and I got another friend, same thing, he's got a daughter, and he tried to later on wasn't there because she lived with her mother, and later on he tried to form a bond with the daughter after he had divorced, went off, married another woman, and was raising a family, and his daughter couldn't live with him. And I tried to explain to him, I'm like, dude, she's been living with her mom. Her mom probably lets her do a whole bunch of shit that you would never let her do, but at the end of the day, you weren't there. You know what I mean? Like, you weren't there to raise your daughter. So she's going to have a hard time living underneath your arbitrary rules that are just going to seem like they're arbitrary, like you just made them up. And the main reason he's creating these rules is because he doesn't want his eldest daughter to be a bad example for his youngest daughter. And what's really messed up about that situation? Is I'm like, your daughter has to sit there and watch you raise your other daughter that raise your other daughter in a way that you didn't raise her. She has to sit there and witness you be a daddy and read bedtime stories and everything. All the stuff that she never got to experience. All because, and this applies to both guys, all because, and this is the question. This is the question, because I'm not going to say this definitively about either one of them. But the question that comes up is, do you hate your wife more than you love your daughter? And the question for black men is, with all the problems we have with black women, do you hate black women, more than, you love black boys, or more than, you love the community? Because, in a lot of these conversations that we have, and don't get it twisted, I get really angry at black women sometimes because, of the gaslighting. And I get angry because, even if a lot of dudes came in and helped out, these women still aren't going to want them, for the men that are interested, in sisters. And then, you get the whole bitterness of, the dude that wanted a chick and now, she's, got a baby with somebody else, or she represents, she represents she's like the avatar for the woman that he wanted, but he couldn't get. So he's angry at, her being yet another black woman that, has some dusty niggas babies, which is why he's got to come in there in the first place and mentor the son and play big brother or some shit like that. Like there's a lot of anger there. Then on top of that, you got all the brothers that got major issues with their mothers because, their mothers were either A, unaffectionate, or B, just gaslit them and told them a whole bunch of bullshit about black women that was not applicable. So they go out there, I bought you some roses, like this guy that went on a date and, basically, got freaking, clowned and shit like that. Or what if he got ghosted? I'm just saying, like, a lot of black women they complain about that. I like how We Need to Talk said it. He said it perfectly. A lot of these women are raising their sons to be with 36-year-old single mothers. I threw in the single mothers, but he said 36-year-old women. Yeah, a 36-year-old woman, she can appreciate that after she done been dicked over by Pookie and them and all that shit. She can appreciate some flowers. She can appreciate, you setting up a date and taking her to dinner and everything else like that. She can appreciate that. But women in their, late teens, 20s and shit, they can't appreciate nothing like that. They go lame ass nigga and ha ha ha, and then, and you sitting there like, damn. You know what I mean? And the crazy thing is, if you one of these type of guys that, you can imitate being a dickhead or being a street dude and whatnot, and then you discover that gets you, more attention and more play from women. That the more you play games with women's heads and the more you fuck with their minds, that they find you even more irresistible. You know what I mean? And then yeah, I cheated on you with this other girl, and then they're fighting over you, and they are interacting with you in a way that's like, damn, like when I was single, y'all wasn't paying attention. Now that I'm what do you call it? Now that I'm in a relationship, now all of a sudden all y'all come out the woodwork. You know what I mean? That is something that, quite a few men, experience, including myself. I've definitely experienced that. It was like, when it was a drought, it was a drought, but when it rained, it poured. You know what I mean? And me, I don't have the attention span to freaking, fuck with multiple women and everything. I mean, it's so bad. I remember one time I was in the bed with a white woman, and I actually called her the name of another white woman I was with. Like this shit was just crazy. Now, granted, these were white women, And, for the example that I'm using, because, that's what I was fooling with at the time. But it's universal when it comes to the way that women want you when they think other women want you. And it don't even matter what the other race of the woman is. It's just the fact that another woman wants your ass. It's like they all come freaking buzzing around you like you're a goddamn beehive. It's the most retarded thing in the world. Then they'll sit there and bitch and complain about, men cheating and whatnot. But the last thing a woman wants is a man that no woman wants. Like whatever. It's evolution. It's female nature. I just wish sometimes women would just own their female nature and stop running around trying to look for justice, and recognize that as a female, as a woman, that their biological imperatives don't make sense in terms of, the principles and values of society. They don't. They don't. Like what the way that women function in nature is not, it doesn't function that way in society. That's why society got to put up rules and all this other stuff, and you can only marry one person and all that stuff. If it was left up to nature, no, it would be, basically, ironically, what we're seeing now in society, where you get, hundreds of women who only want, the top 10% of guys. Right? That's what you see. This sort of silverback gorilla. The lion and his, pride of lionesses. Like, that's literally what you would see. Society, and again, as one, dark feminist said, that women are used as the currency to incentivize male productivity in modern society, and she was 100% right. Women are the currency. If you are a productive male, you get to marry this woman, and you get to have your little kingdom, within the marriage, and she must obey and serve, but you must provide and protect her, and you get your lineage and offspring and raise your children and give them your last name, you know what I mean? But, you have to be productive in the society, because the only way that you're going to really be able to attract her is you must be a provider. Right? And then women are encouraged to get with the provider, right? It was like that forever. But now, the whole social media is flipping shit on its head. Women are selling pictures of their feet. You know what I mean? I don't need a man. I'm selling pictures of my feet. I make freaking, $30,000 a month selling pictures of my feet. What you gonna tell me? The shit is just, and this is why a lot of, Western men are going off and looking for women, elsewhere. Because they're really trying to go back in time. That's literally what they're going to. They're going back in time to simpler days with simpler women. Women that are not, overly ambitious. They're not looking for that. They're not looking for a woman that can use her resources to challenge, him in the household. And you're going to start seeing more of that. In my opinion, in my guesstimation, this is really going to, spike a lot of interracial relationships. You're going to see a lot more mixed people in the world as a result of this. And, who knows what that's going to mean, for the future. But that's what I think, because I think there are less men who care about race at this point. It's so bad. And the group economics, they don't care, where they're putting their seed. They want to get a cooperative woman. Because like I said, I don't, even when it comes to white men, they're like, Southeast Asia it is. And I'm like, what about Europe? I thought, didn't y'all fuck with Ukraine? I guess they can't go to Ukraine right now, you know what I mean? But you would think that would be an easier place to go. Like, she's trying to get away from a war-torn country, right? Like, you would think that there'd be white guys trying to capitalize on that. I don't know. But they do bring up Eastern European women. White men do bring up Eastern European women, but I'm just saying. You see a lot of Southeast Asia, that they want to go to. Black men usually need a little bit more color, a little bit more ass, and they start talking about Latin America or something like that. No, I'm just saying, you can walk away. Again, it's a free country. You can do whatever the fuck you want to do, right? Hodge twin style. You can do whatever the fuck you want to do. But if you think that you're going to get a pass, if you think that, You know that the black women are going to give you their blessings. If you think that other groups that now are aware of, due to all these public conversations, are going to, not bring that shit up and throw it in your face when they get pissed off with you, you got another thought coming. I mean, I had an Indian guy just on that video clip of them Indian women talking about melanin and that I put on my community shorts. I had an Indian guy, the motherfucker was just going off, talking about in the black communities like this and the black communities like that. And I'm like, motherfucker, at the end of the day, I've interacted with y'all dark skinned dudes and dark skinned Indian dudes, and y'all talk terribly about dark skinned Indian women. You have no value, no use for them. And the only difference between the Indian community and the black community is that Indians don't have gender-based colorism. They have colorism across the board. And the black community is gender-based colorism. Black man can be as dark as he wants to be, and the woman, she's got to be lighter, right? That's the concept. And even light-skinned women and dark-skinned women both, feel this way because, they don't have that shit in other communities. You don't hear Indian women talking about, oh, I don't like light-skinned Indian men because, he just too pretty, girl. Like, you don't hear no shit like that. Black women only want to say that. That's why I say it's gender-based. This idea that we have in the West where lighter skinned it equates to, femininity or beauty, and darker skin equates to hyper masculinity, that throws things off. But many of these Indian women, many of them, they're Canadian, they grew up in the West, and, their whole concept, of masculinity, is, well, I shouldn't say their whole concept, but it's influenced by African Americans and their music and whatnot because, we're visible, right? I mean, this is the problem that the Asian men have because they're not visible. They have more intact communities than the black community, but Asian women are running, like they're trying to jump out off of a boat or something like that to get away from Asian men. And it's because Asian men, severely lack any sort of positive promotion. And then, the fact that, the Japan got, its ass handed to it with, 2 nuclear bombs, and the Asian community hasn't really, had any, like victories, even though I would consider Vietnam to be a victory, but America plays it off like, oh, it was a mutual, exodus. Like, no. U.S. government got its ass handed to it by a bunch of, Vietnamese with Raiden hats and sandals. You know what I'm saying? And an AK-47. But now when it comes to the dark skinned Indian women, like, think about it, right? If I'm a dark skinned Indian woman and my own community is saying I ain't shit, right? This goes back to Karazan's go where you're celebrated, not tolerated, right? This goes back to her saying. And if you're a dark skinned Indian woman and then you hear the black community, at the very least, whether it's black men, D'Angelo talking about brown sugar, or India Irie talking about, brown skin, I'm saying there's a handful of songs in the community that give a shout out to dark skin. And I'm saying if you're a dark skinned woman, give me one song in the Indian community that talks about dark skin. It's probably some old ass song from like the 50s or some shit like that. But nah, they got that shit bad. The Fair and Lovely commercials, the skin bleaching, it's just horrible. And not only that, but when it comes to dark skinned Indian women, I don't hear anything coming out of brothers' mouths, but generally, positive. And I think some of it comes from the fact that, a lot of those women, you could mistake them for an African American woman just with long hair, right? Because, long hair in the black community, has a premium. Hence why all the sisters are running around wearing all these lace fronts and wigs and all this, fake imitation Indian hair any goddamn way. So if you go and you get an Indian woman, a dark skinned Indian woman, quiet as is kept. And I've said this before when it comes to sisters, you could pass quite a few of them off as black women, and black women wouldn't even notice. Their alarms seem to go off if you walk in with a white woman or a blonde hair, blue eyed white woman. Alarms go off. But if you walk in with a dark skinned Indian woman, it's like they're trying to figure out, what she is. They're trying to figure out like how did she get that hair, or they're trying to figure some shit out. You know. But anyway, I just wanted to say that because I probably didn't want to make a whole video about that, about the dark skinned Indian women, because I was going to do a video on it, but I just throw it in here. But the other thing I want to say, getting back to the topic, is no, the issue that I see is what that brother said in that in that whatever that Big Think clip where he talked about high self-esteem and low group esteem. Whenever you see these black people, these like type of Fox News black people that they want to coon out and they want to disassociate themselves from the black community, they tend to have low group esteem, and they think that somehow their individual personal self-esteem or how they personally feel about themselves or their own individual accomplishments trump the reputation of the group, and it doesn't. And not only that, but they really struggle with the fact that they have low group esteem, because the black community has we don't have a whole bunch of victories underneath the belt. Again, going back to the Montgomery, boat brawl, right? Or on the Alabama River, right? Going back to that. That was very publicly embarrassing, to the white racist and all those people that, run around singing in a small town, right? So again, like if it was truly individualism and it was just this meritocracy like that, then basically all of the people that thought alike would come together regardless of race. But that's not what we see. We see group economics, we see tribalism, we see Jewish communities, we see Italian neighborhoods, we see Dominican communities, right? We see white neighborhoods. We see black neighborhoods. That's what we see. And the thing is, Cat made a joke about it when I said this to him. He was like, and the funny thing is, if all the people of like mind congregated, you're no longer an individual. You are now a part of that new group, whatever that group is, whatever title goes along with that group. And he's 100% right about that. But the point that I'm making is you don't, the other people are not leaving their group category, especially as white people with all the benefits that white people have due to the transgressions of their ancestors. They ain't about to give up all that white privilege. They're not about to give that up. Absolutely not. I mean, none of them would trade places with an African American. They would not. And that should tell you something. But apparently it doesn't. You somehow think that you being an individual will allow you to circumvent redlining or some shit like that. No, it will not. You being an individual, you being, this token, they might use you to silence the other black people and say, oh, look, we're not racist. We have a black person here. Right? But, they'll tolerate a token, but they're not gonna open up the floodgates, to let everybody in. And the Asians are finding that out right now. Because they, like I said before, with that Harvard bullshit, now they running around and they realizing, wait a minute, if we getting the best scores, how come we don't see more Asian CEOs? How come more Asian Americans aren't running companies, right? How come nobody takes, Andy Kim, is his name Andy Kim, the guy that ran for president? How come nobody's taking him seriously, I mean, if you go and you look at, a lot of the racial, analysis of I think this is Andy Ken. Yeah, if you look at the racial analysis of his, campaign and whatnot, like it's like nobody takes an Asian American seriously. Just like with Ramaswamy, they don't take them seriously when it comes to leadership positions. They don't. They don't. With black men, I think it has to do more with a strong masculine presence, right? Even though white folks don't like to take, command from a black person, but as long as a black person is, enhancing their wealth or adhering to the rules, regulations, and structure of their system, again, they'll tolerate a token. And again, the other thing is that there's guilt with us. You know what I mean? They want to have a high profile black person here and there. But again, they're not opening up the floodgates. But the thing with Asians is Asians have that foreign factor. That's what they get hit with. That they're not really Americans. Nobody can say that to African Americans. You know what I mean? Like, I haven't heard go back to Africa in a very long time. The only time I hear even anything remotely like it is when black people complain about something. They'll be like, well, if you don't like it here, perhaps you like it somewhere else, right? But the actual statement, go back to Africa, like, I think black people shut that down a long time ago. Motherfucker, you brought us here. I mean, go back to Africa. You fucking brought us here. We didn't come here voluntarily. You know what I mean? So like, there's certain things, like, again, we're the only what is it? The only non-white group that can't be sent back. Because I mean, we don't even have. Where would we be sent back to? What asylum country would we go to? You see, versus somebody who's fresh off of the boat, and they come here on a visa or a green card or whatever. Like, that's a different situation. So we are, as we've always said, an inconvenient population. Same thing with Native Americans. Where are you going to say we're going to send Native Americans back to? They were here before anybody. Right? So it's a different dynamic. Right? But damn, what was I about to say? I kind of talked about quite a few things, but yeah, there's no escape. There's no escape, and I understand how much it bothers you. But even I struggle with it. Like I said, I struggle with it. I struggle with it all the time because, number one, if it's like if everybody just did the right thing. It's like if you had like a dirty street, like if there were like trash on the street. If 1,000 people were walking past all the trash that was in the street and just chose to pick up one piece of trash, by the end of the day, there would be no trash on the street. It would be cleaned up, right? Minimal effort. 1,000 people, everybody's doing the right thing. Everybody contributes. Everybody picks up one piece of trash, and the street would be cleaned up. But the problem is, that's not what goes on, in the black community, because a lot of black people, are damaged because of the socioeconomic problems. And a lot of people get frustrated, but it's like you cannot expect, people who don't have resources, people who grow up in prolonged exposure to poverty, to think and operate the same way as people who do. And this is a constant Republican conservative talking point. And all they're trying to do is whittle people down to acting and behaving, with the desired behavior and codes of conduct without them having the necessary resources to make moves. To have, to fulfill their dreams and their desires so that they're in a healthy state of mind. People always ignore that shit. You know what I mean? Why do you think they, solitary confinement, is cruel and unusual punishment? Because human beings are social creatures. Not supposed to be in isolation like that. And black people are not supposed to be living and operating, the way that we, live in America. The only reason we function the way that we function is because the system of white supremacy has constantly had its feet on black people's neck. Again, I can go through the exhaustive list. This is why they don't want to teach CRT, if you want to call it that, which is real American history. They don't want to teach that shit. Because they want to say that black people are the way that they are just because. Not because of anything the system of white supremacy did. Right? Again, like I said before, white people, when they hop in a time machine, they only want to go back to fucking 1985 when it comes to explaining the black experience. Right? Make America great again? Oh, we want to go back to 1955. Talk about the black experience in America, they only want to go back to 1985. They don't want to go back before that. Because there's too much shit that, they would have to answer for. That clearly impacts, the lives of black people today. They want to pretend like it doesn't. You're talking generational oppression, generational marginalization, generational discrimination. Again, if you think I'm bullshitting, go. The whole Elmer Fudd's whole character is based off of a foolish black person. That was the original Elmer Fudd. Go watch Lazy Town Looney Tunes episode. Just type in Lazy Town Looney Tunes. It'll come up. This is what white folks put out there. And just like the doll test with the black children and the inferiority complexes and low self-esteem and all that other shit, that's what they did. And then now they just want to watch, we ain't got nothing to do with it. They just want to wash their hands of it. Oh, it has no effect. Oh, it has no impact. And yet white people have studied, the white people are the authors of psychology. They have written extensive books of what happens to a person and their mindset when a person is, they starve a person. Y'all seen this clip, on TikTok? You know what I mean? Of this white girl screaming because she wants fucking wing, she wants to go to Wingstop. She's like, I ate nothing. You know what I mean? Like, motherfucker turn that shit into a heavy metal song. And I'm not gonna lie, that shit slaps though. That shit slaps. But like I'm just saying, like they've already done all that. Done the tests, done the studies, done the what is it, that Stanford prison, experiment that they did, and how that affected the people, and the guards started mistreating the people, and then the people that were the prisoners, they started acting a different way, right? And what happens if you take a group of people and you starve them? I mean, even shit with people who are, I forget what it was. They try to do the whole thing where they put people in a habitat because they wanted to see how people would live with going to Mars and shit like that. And I think they had to shut that bitch down because I think they had like motherfuckers about to kill each other in there or some shit like that. I forget what exactly happened. I gotta look that up. Like, what happened into Mars? Let me ask Chat GPT. What happened? Come on. What happened in the Mars habitat experiment? Why was it shut down? Let's see what it says. I have no information. Come on. Mars habitat experiment. I forget what the damn thing is called. Somebody's gonna come and say, hold on. Hold on, let me see if I can go to, come on. Mars habitat simulation. Will spend a year living in a simulated Mars habitat. I'm pretty sure they did this shit before, and they had to shut this shit down. 4 volunteers. Da-na-na-na. 4 people selected in live replica. I'll have to look it up. I'll put it in the description box if I freaking find it. What they had before, but yeah. In any event, that's all I gotta say. That's my video. SWP out. Don't forget to comment, share, like, and subscribe. Here it is. I found it. I'm just gonna read you an excerpt. This was in 1991, and this was Living in a Bubble. The title of this article is, this is Euronews.green, and it says, Living in a Bubble, did this failed 1990s experiment predict the future, right? And basically it says, you know, everything taken into the Biosphere 2 had, that's what it, Biosphere 2, that's what it was. Biosphere 2 had to be screened for noxious gases that could put the habitants at risk. Even health and beauty products like chemical deodorants were banned. In order to prevent harmful substances from upsetting the ecosystem's delicate balance, natural materials like wool and wood were used in living areas. But it didn't go exactly to plan. Oxygen levels became dangerously low, and the plant life couldn't keep up with carbon dioxide levels. Any oxygen that was produced was converted into CO2 and absorbed by the unsealed concrete used to make the habitat. Animals and plants started to die at an alarming rate, and the lack of resources split the group into 2 warring factions. It drew the attention of the press, and conversely came shortly after with criticism of the project's charismatic counterculture inventor John Allen at the center. So what does this say? Drew the attention of the press. And this is Biosphere 2, Bogus New World, Tucson, January 8th, 1992. Yeah, so basically, yeah, I think, yeah, they were about to kill each other in that motherfucker. Reading. This isn't ecological, but biospheres failed conspicuously at their basic goal of establishing a self-sustaining ecosystem with a stable atmosphere maintained by a balanced respiration of plants and animals. In fact, they never came close. Carbon dioxide levels are way too high, and even that is a bit of fudging. Just hours before September 26th, final closure, space biosphere inventors quietly installed a carbon dioxide scrubber like that used on submarines. The scrubber is different, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, basically, submarine, yeah. And what's so crazy about the scrubbers on the submarine, I remember I was watching some documentary about the scrubbers in the submarine, and then they had like this fire because if the scrubbers touch water, they ignite or something like that. Like and basically sapped up, you know, obviously fire consumes oxygen, and it sapped up all of the leftover oxygen. So they suffocated right there, you know, in the submarine, you know, as a result when they were trying to like swap out the CO2 scrubbers. I'm gonna now look that up. Why are CO2 scrubbers? Are they flammable? Let's see. People were talking about, you know, oh, you know, you have a great wealth of knowledge. How do I not have a great wealth of knowledge when you got Chat GPT? You know what I mean? I'm like Neo in the Matrix, like plug me in. Are CO2 scrubbers flammable? Let's see what it says. Not flammable as they are designed to remove CO2 from the air and physical. However, the materials used in the CO2 scrubbers and the environment in which they are used could potentially be flammable. It's important to handle and operate the equipment, including CO2 scrubbers, according to proper safety guidelines to minimize any risk. Okay, I don't know what the reason was. I don't know what the mechanism was, but I remember watching that documentary of them being on the submarine, and that shit was like at the bottom of the ocean or some shit, and fucking, you know, they basically sucked up all the oxygen, and the sailors died. But anyway, yeah, biosphere too. So again, the white folks they've already written all the books on the psychology. Again, that's what they do. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what they do. And so when they try to sit and gaslight and try to pretend like, well, I don't understand why these niggas are acting like the way that they are. Like when you've created this stressful environment for black people, and then you wonder why people are out of their minds. Same thing goes for the white men shooting the place up. You know what I mean? Like, as much as white men and their bullshit gets on my nerves and their racism, I can definitely see how a young white man who, he grew up seeing nothing but Barack Obama in office before Donald Trump and Biden became in office. But I remember, like, when Obama was in office, we had lots of school shootings and to be a white male and to hear about racism, and then you look up and you see Barack Obama as president, even though he's half white, they still viewed him as black. And then you got all this stuff with the feminism and all this stuff with the, all this stuff with the economy and positive male identity just going into the shitter, right? Like, I could see why a white male would lose his shit. No, seriously. Even as a black man, I could see why a white male would lose his shit. Because it's almost similar to what I'm saying, right? Where he's like, motherfucker, I was born in 1992. You know what I mean? Like, and he's like walking around and he's like getting hit with all this shit. Doesn't even know where it's comes from. You know what I mean? He might say the N-word here or there in school because his friends, said it, or somebody's dad said it or some shit like that. But he hasn't really been in any position to oppress anybody. He's just kind of along for the ride. You know what I mean? But when you start getting everybody, and nothing is worse than the white male in America. They all start going like that. Yeah, motherfuckers lose their shit. So at the very least, I can understand, that type of shit. And why they snap and lose it and, blame something else. And then you got, they turn on fucking television and black male hypermasculinity all over the place. Then you hear toxic masculinity this and toxic masculinity that, and white males are fucking oppressive. And then Jamal's out there, he's over there fucking with Becky, and Becky's talking about how, I was just watching the what was this shit? The clip of the freaking Family Guy, and they had the black guy at the table mad that the Family Guy, whatever his name is, his son was dating a black girl, and the black guy's over there talking about black girls are just a fetish, and you just want another notch underneath your belt. And then they flipped it, and then the black guy had slept with the dude's wife before they got married. I'm like, oh, and they're sitting there flirting at the table right in front of them. I'm like, what is going on here? Like, this is ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? So, all these little type of like pop shots and shit like that. Yeah. Again, yeah, I could totally see why a white dude would lose his crackers. Pun intended. I could totally see why. Shit. But you got to just look at it for what the fuck it is. But for white people to sit around and they act like, they don't understand, bullshit. I've seen enough of the manosphere sit there and talk about, they're not advocating for it. They're not saying that they would do it, but they're saying that they could definitely see, why, some dude would lose his shit. Especially when you want to talk about incels and, women only want to, this is the most sexless generation, that there is for young men. And please, that's a recipe for somebody, shooting the shit up. That's a recipe for that shit. Anybody with two brain cells can figure that one out. But somehow when we get to black males and we get to how they fall into criminality, right? When there's, discrimination, no economic opportunities, deindustrialization, and the whole history of all this marginalization and whatnot. Like, white people all of a sudden they draw a blank. You know, see, the problem is he doesn't know white Jesus, and see, the problem is, you know, these young black men, they're lazy, right? I'm like, you came up with 50 explanations as to why this teenage white boy shot the fucking school up. Okay, shot up children. You gave explanations as to why he shot up children. But when you get to a black guy that's 17 and selling drugs and you know, because, you know, either, you know, he has an inferiority complex and wants to have nice shit that he's never had, tired of being dusty, or whether he's trying to help his mom out or whatever, all of a sudden, oh, we can't understand why that happens. Oh, we see, the problem is, you know, we should have left them in chains, or, you know, like, for real? So you're gonna break down to me why the white boy shot up the school, but you can't tell me why the black guy is out here and he joined the gang and all? Like, fuck y'all. But anyway, that's all I gotta say. That is my video. SWP out. Don't forget to comment, share, like, and subscribe.